Evil.
So we our agreed upon top 5 for the year later.
Yeah, we do have an agreed.
We
have a compromise.
With
It's a compromise, yeah.
With 2 asterisks.
Yeah.
Both of mine are asterisks, dude.
No, you have your number 1 is on your list.
So our asterisks are the 2 continuity stories that we can't really include as official number 1s because the story doesn't start at the number 1.
Yeah.
And those would be Batman Incorporated and Green Lantern. Our top 5, what we compiled was a shared number 1 with Animal Man and Swamp Thing.
Yeah, because their stories are so overlapping.
Yeah.
They've been referring to each other since the first issue, and they're finally in their crossover. I mean, one could not exist without the other at this point. So.
And it's a solid comic, but it's kind of sad that it's number 1 in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because they're taking 14 or 15 issues to really do what they could have done in 5 or 6. And it's a little frustrating.
They had to time it with the annuals that you're leading.
It's a little frustrating.
I feel like it is an editorial decision that they
had to stretch it
Jeff
out.
Lemire and Scott Snyder would have done a crossover between these two 6 issues ago.
Totally.
I mean, they were ready to do it. So why waste time? I think it was editorial.
Which I think is why the later half of the early 10s was slower than the rest of it. I think they had to stretch it out.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I feel like that has to be our number 1 only because that's the only 2 that all of us are reading. I agree completely. Like, it's not my favorite. It's so decompressed, like both of them. And you're just like, just make them more compact and tell us that friggin' story. Like, I don't care how pretty Yannick Paquette's art is.
Although it is really pretty.
It is, but he could actually have drawn all of the issues. For me, Animal Man, I just liked Travel Foreman's art more than I like Steve Pugh.
Yeah, Travel Foreman was not only creepier, but just better. I think the initial artist for Animal Man, way better.
Yeah, and so like that kind of helped make it drift off a little bit for me.
What was our number 2 comic?
Wonder Woman, just me, just because it's my favorite.
I want to read it.
Right.
I'm waiting for the paperback.
It was that was another one of those that I first started reading when it came out new. And I gave it a chance because, for one, I love some Brian Azzarello work. But honestly, I really liked it, and I think I would have stuck with it longer if Cliff Chang had stayed on, consistently. It was every issue that he wasn't on there, it made me not want to read that comic anymore.
Yeah, I can understand. He's on it consistently. There's a fill-in artist because he can't draw fast enough, which I think is one of the unfortunate things about the whole reboot, is that since they were so set on having it out every month, like doing this every month, that they didn't really give. There's some artists that just can't draw a book in a month.
Williams.
It takes them 5 weeks. It takes them 6 weeks to draw a comic, and I feel like they might have been better off doing what Saga did, and at least taking a month off to let the actual artist catch up.
Which one of our other top 5, Batwoman by J.H. Williams. That if they would have done that, that would have been easily my top 1 or 2 comics.
Well, and if the second arc had actually been written well.
That second arc drove me away. To the point that when J.H. Williams returned to the art duties in the 3rd arc, I was not present anymore.
Yeah.
I just didn't care anymore. I was not going to wait around for that just for pretty art, like I was saying about letting art dictate my buying decisions when it comes to
I totally
comics.
let art dictate my buying decisions, because if I just wanted good writing, I would read a book. Yeah. But I want good art.
You would read like 3 books.
Touché.
True. But yeah, Batwoman, it was so, like, that would be the number 1 if the second arc didn't exist. J.H. Williams, who co-wrote it, isn't a writer. He's an artist.
So yes, so that's 3 of our top.
Yeah, that's 3. Number 4 was Dial H,
which is
it's still like it's a sign of how much this is suffering.
Yeah.
That like it's a good comic. I mean, I really like China Mayville's writing as a writer
as
in
a novelist.
books. And it's decent, but like I just don't care that much.
I think it's hard to get a cohesive story out of Dial H because of how random it is.
Yeah.
Because he goes into a phone booth and every time he comes out as a new superhero.
I feel like I would have liked it more if he had just done one-shots.
Actually, that would have probably turned out better.
That
Yeah,
I agree
and like
with
maybe
that.
had a different artist every time.
Every
And
time,
he also,
yeah.
when I first read, I read in the first 5 in one sitting, and I think one of his things is also that he is a novelist and his first time writing comics. When you have monthly comics, you need to have kind of cue points for people's memories, because a lot of people read a lot of comics month to month. So if you continue your story midstream, it's hard for your brain to get back on track if there's no recap or anything like that. And because when I first started reading it, by the 3rd issue, I was completely lost. So that's probably one of the problems with it. And yeah,
I don't really like the art that much.
the art's not that great.
It's okay, but it's like, eh.
It's just such a shame that we have to act like this about it too, because it should be an awesome book.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a really, really quirky, old school idea to borrow from. They got the right surrealist weirdo to write it, and they've got awesome Brian Boland covers on it. Why couldn't they just get Brian Boland to do the art on it? It would have been
taken
awesome.
too
No,
long,
it
and they would have had to get fill-in artists.
Yeah, exactly.
I still think like
it could have been really, really good. And
Yeah, the villains are kind of generic.
Yeah.
And the settings are really similar. It's, inside of a building, on the street, running into a telephone booth, inside the evil laboratory.
this guy has a lot of
So-
practice drawing telephones.
Yeah.
So if they would just mix it up a little, it still has some potential. That's one of the ones I'm actually going to stay on with. So
Yeah. And then lastly, we have Action Comics.
Which we
by
talked
by the
about.
law of averages,
Yeah, by the law of averages.
By the law of 2 people reading it.
Yeah, the fact that I still enjoy Action. I think it's still a pretty good comic. I really have a hard time with Rags Morales, but at the same time, I push through because I am a huge Grant Morrison nerd.
It's fun to
So-
see him play around with the potential that Superman has.
Yeah,
He's done well in the past
really enjoy
with
it.
Superman.
I like watching Clark Kent / Superman as a much younger man, trying to kind of figuring it out in Metropolis when he's young. It's kind of cool, but at the same time, I know the minute that Grant Morrison is not writing that comic anymore, I'm gone.
All I know is that I couldn't handle the art. So that's the DC New 52. Our thoughts on it, our top 5 with asides.
Added commentary.
we're more excited for the Marvel.
Yeah,
stuff that's
we're
coming out
very
next month.
excited for Marvel
And
now.
they're not paying us to say that, I guarantee.
Nobody's paying.
Even with
About
Disney
anything.
money, they're still not paying us.
Someday.